we have an election coming up next year. And the ANC, what are they doing? Well, the Secretary-General, Fikile Mbalula, not known for holding back on his views, this past weekend at the Women's League conference, he ripped into the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, saying he should be removed if he can't fix Transnet. So let's speak to my colleague and the host of On the Spot here on ENCA, political analyst Lukhona Mnguni. Lukhona, great to chat to you as always. You know, I have been, this particular show has focused on what we've just heard from the Water Research Commission, but also on the gas explosion in Johannesburg. In both cases, it's not clear what the cause is, but it looks like it's many different things, some naturally occurring, but some certainly due to neglect or not monitoring, that have conspired to create a deadly environment. In the face of that, one would imagine that the governing party has to answer, because they have been running municipalities and provincial government and national government for over 2 decades. Do you think that the ANC is seized with the right things at this time?
Sally, I've repeatedly said this, but a good evening to you. Let me not be rude, and our viewers at ENCA. I've repeatedly said this, that the ANC is extremely distracted from the core mission of governing that it should be focusing on. And this is because for a long time, the ANC's leadership is preoccupied with internal issues. So it's become an inward-looking organization. It's unable to find traction and expression with the greater society. And this is partly why people have started not to turn out to vote for the ANC, but because they also use the ANC as the standard bearer of our politics, they then simply switch out of politics and say, well, they are all the same. Why will they behave any different to the ANC? But Sally, I also think tactically the ANC is trying to re-endear itself with society, but I don't think that they are using the right types of tactics, because the tactics they seem to rely on have potential to divide them internally. Now, somebody might say, I'm lamenting the fact that they are inward looking and yet at the same time worried about things that divide them internally. Unfortunately, for them to be a robust force that can contest the elections that you talk about, they've got to have a semblance of some internal unity in order to present themselves to society. The more they appear to be presenting themselves to society as though they are fighting internally, society even further loses, interest in the credibility of the ANC. So for me, if you were to say the pronouncements of the Secretary General, whether it's about Minister Pravin Gordhan or about statues that were actually unveiled by his own president, speaks to a sense where I think, I immediately said to some colleagues, I think the power is getting to his head and he's going to have to moderate, because there are people that when they have real and material power, they begin to have other interests and they pursue them with that power that they have. And I think it was always known. In fact, I remember when JJ and myself, had Fikile Mbalula on JJ's show at Nasrec last year, and I was in the room. One of the things that he said is that he would have to get off social media, but he has not taken his own advice, because he knows that that is a point of weakness. And when your Secretary General starts to be perceived as fighting with other senior members of the organization, whether in government or in the party, it doesn't bode well. It comes across as though he may be willing to bully people with the power that he has.
Also, we've seen just this past week, the ANC Women's League has a new president at last, Sisisi Tolashe. How do you rate her potential to revive the Women's League so that it truly is a voice for women, not only in the party, but in the country?
Well, look, Sally, I think Tolashe is quite popular within the file and ranks of the ANC, whether that is by design of, power arrangements and factional arrangements, or that is by her own strength stands to be seen. I don't think that she's well known for anything, impactful that she has delivered to the country, including what her core vision was going into this conference and the agenda that she's placing on the table. I mean, I'll make an example. I know Batabile Dlamini, for example, is seen as a villain in many ways, particularly because of her conduct as Minister of social development. But she actually had a very clear agenda in terms of what she wanted to achieve insofar as women representation is concerned within the ANC. So we are going to have to judge Tolashe on some of those gains and how she takes them forward. You'll remember, Sally, the ANC even ended up with rules that if the premier is male, therefore the balance of the remainder of the 10 candidates in the provincial cabinet has to be split in a fair manner. The speaker has to be female. The province of Gauteng tried not to implement this after 2019. It backfired because there was a strong voice that was pushing for the implementation from the Women's League, achieving 50-50 at cabinet and so on. So you may think that these are small things. I mean, standing the ground for a female presidential candidate, and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma had a fair chance. I mean, she lost marginally in the NASREC of 2017. So that leadership actually did have some agenda that it wanted to achieve, particularly within the ANC and transforming the place of women and being forceful about it. So Tolashe will have to safeguard those gains and then take them forward in true sense and what they mean and so on, particularly the elevation of women and them not being juniorized. There's been a bit of a cry that, they're always given the positions and all of that. So, Sally, I have nothing to say about Tolashe at the moment because, honestly speaking, there's much that stands to be seen about her. And hopefully we will have a chance to interview her even here on channel in the near future going forward.
Yeah, absolutely, because the issues that women face in this country are so incredibly critical. And as you say, the party certainly needs to be making it very clear that it is focusing on the people of this country. Well, it's always a pleasure to chat to you. I'm sure we'll be speaking a lot more in the months to come as we run up to the elections. Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening, political analyst and host Lukhona Mnguni.